Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, so welcome everyone. I'm going to try to give an overview of how I see all of this playing out. So I do want this to be very interactive. You should feel free to interrupt with questions or comments. And yeah, the meeting is scheduled for 2 hours, so that's how long I planned, although I don't know if we'll necessarily, it's not like I've made so many slides that it's definitely going to be 2 hours, but yeah. So the overall meeting agenda is going to be first talking about the research plan, and then talking about research logistics type things. So the research plan, as I understand it, and of course I've talked to many of you about many aspects of this already, but to get it all in one place. So the overall goal is to get better probabilistic tiling theorems. Anything fitting that description is within scope, so I do want you guys to have some freedom to set individual projects under that heading. Like if you have an idea, then I want you to pursue it. But then the default plan is this path that I've charted out personally that I think will be productive. And it starts with the draft paper that you guys have been looking over, which really lays out the plan in there, and then moves towards this starting with maybe improving the draft paper somewhat. Like some of you have already given me comments on where the math is shaky and needs to be improved, and then moving towards trying to complete the research program sketched out there to get a version of updateless decision theory which works with a version of logical induction and which has some nice theorems about it. In particular, of course, we're going for a tiling theorem.
Just to make sure to explicitly unpack things just for the first time, what is a tiling theorem? Like, what precisely would a tiling theorem look like?
Yeah, so a tiling theorem, what I mean by a tiling theorem is you have the agent at one time, and then it's thinking about future decisions that it might make.
Okay.
And it has the capacity to make self-modifications within some space of self-modifications. So to give a simple example, it might be some kind of polytime space, like you have the base algorithm running in the future, and then you stick any polytime algorithm on top of that you want, that modifies its outputs before the action gets taken. And the reason for the polytime restriction is because if we imagine that we have unbounded computational power in these self-modifications, then it feels kind of obvious that it should want to self-modify, right? Like it should want to increase its future computational power, that seems like it would be a useful thing to do in many situations. And so in a related theorem, you could call it a tiling theorem. Sam at one point said, Sam Eisenstadt said he's not quite satisfied with calling it a tiling theorem, but he wrote a theorem at one point that was originally intended to be a tiling theorem, which has this nature of like polytime modifications. This was for updateful logical inductor decision theory, and under some pretty heavy assumptions. And it was able to make any polytime modifications to itself. And he proved that in the limit of it learning about situations, then it wouldn't learn to do that. It would learn that it can just make the right decision on its own. It doesn't need to make polytime decisions to itself. Sorry, polytime modifications to itself. So that to me is the template. You have the agent, you have it considering decisions it's making in the future. You have some space of modifications, and you show that it doesn't prefer to self-modify.
Okay, so just to make sure that I've understood this, a tiling theorem is something where we have an agent, and that agent can make some specified self-modifications that are computationally cheap to implement, so that it's not like cheating by actually the self-modification I make will be bolting on a whole bunch of extra compute. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Under conditions where there isn't some huge obvious utility to the self-modification, we want to figure out conditions under which, or we want to be able to prove that our initial agent will prefer to stay the same rather than self-modify.
Yeah. And of course, I can keep adding more details.
And also, for instance, we could say something like our agent, any agent with some reasonable utility function will prefer not to have an inverter bolted onto its output.
Yeah.
Will prefer not to, and then do the opposite of whatever I was going to do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
One space of self-modifications that we can consider is self-modifications to the utility function. And then we would expect and hope to be able to show that it doesn't want to modify the utility function. The type of modifications that I've been considering are more modifications to the policy. But yeah, there's many different spaces of modifications that we could consider. Roman?
I want to ask, what's like this the draft paper? What is it about? Like, I mean, there was lots of draft papers you shared, like ones by Martin Soto or yours, or which one?
Yeah,
or you were just talking about draft papers in general?
Let's see. Let me bring it up. So, this is the. Oh yeah. Right, when I change tabs, you actually don't see. Let me share the screen differently. Okay. So I specifically mean the thing in the understanding trust readings document, the first thing that is shown here. So this understanding trust PDF. So how many people have looked at this? Yeah, I guess I'd like to just ask kind of like what's people's level of understanding this. So maybe I'll start with Roman.
Yeah, so yeah, I haven't had much time to look at this paper. Yeah, so
Yeah.
sorry
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, right?
I provided
Yeah.
these readings in case people, had time to prepare, but that's not like an expectation of the program.
Cool.
And Norman?
I read like half of it, the first half.
Okay. And Paul?
I skimmed through most of it. I read the initial parts a little bit more deeply. I had, like I mentioned, I put a couple questions about things that I encountered was a little bit confused about in the Discord. Those
Yeah.
were that was where some of those questions got generated.
Yeah. And Hannah?
Yeah, I read the first half of it.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, this is what I mean by the draft paper. So getting back to the presentation. Yeah, any more questions or comments?
Sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Actually, like I haven't looked at the paper, but I have looked at the slides, like the neighboring link. This was like it is supposed to be like a talk, like accommodating to a talk, right?
Yeah, the
that's
paper, the paper and the slides have a lot of overlap. The slides are somewhat more detailed about the last part, and the paper is somewhat more detailed about the first part, I think, but they have a lot of overlap.
Like I looked at it and I like I don't know, like I wasn't understanding the language. Like there was lots of like gaps. I like it felt like something was skipped over. Like it felt like it was something that accompanying a talk, like not a thing that like stands for itself. Like, is it? Am I correct or?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense looking at the slides. Yeah, like I guess my intention was like, the paper kind of accompanies the slides, and so, but I will be presenting all of this material in more detail in our weekly meetings. And so the first meeting I will be going through these slides, and we'll talk more about that later in the logistics portion. So you'll definitely have opportunity to go through it slowly with everybody, asking questions and getting these explanations that you need.
So just to check that my idea of what your box there, tiling theorem for logically uncertain UDT, what that would mean is we want some kind of theorem that says that if we have some agent A that runs an updateless decision theory and is logically uncertain about some facts, that we can find conditions under which we'll prefer not to self-modify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, can you just repeat all of that? Because I think I caught all of it, but
Sure, of course. So let's say we have some agent A, and it's running some updateless decision theory, which, if I remember correctly, is still underspecified.
Yeah, I mean, updateless decision theory is kind of well specified, but given the mystery box of like it's using some logical uncertainty, and that's the part that we need to specify here.
Right, and it's also that agent is logically uncertain about some facts.
Yeah.
And we want to figure out under what conditions will it choose to self-modify.
Yeah.
Or under what conditions, if it self-modifies, can it trust its own future actions?
I would say if we want to show conditions under which it doesn't choose to self-modify,
Okay.
or at least doesn't strictly prefer to self-modify. Maybe it's indifferent about self-modification in some
Okay.
case, because maybe it pre-commits to do something that it already knows that it will do. So it's like, well, whatever. But yeah. And so I don't think we're about the business of showing that if it self-modifies, then something, like, that's not the shape of the theorem that I have in mind.
Okay.
So why are self-modifications undesirable? And based on this motivation, what kind of what's the scope of self-modifications that we do not want?
Yeah. So as I already indicated, I'm like, in shaping this space of self-modifications that we're trying to rule out, we don't include things like computational upgrades, because it seems like sane agents will often want more computing power, right? And so there's some self-modifications that we're okay with, and there's other self-modifications that we're not okay with. And I won't claim to have complete clarity in what this should be, but the basic idea, as I see it, is that we might want to prove, like, yeah, one way of thinking of it is you want to prove some safety properties. Like this, we're doing like foundation work towards a later goal of proving some safety properties for some system. Now, these safety properties about this system will rely on what I will call architectural details, meaning things like how the system reasons, things like how the system thinks about expected utility, and those are the things that we don't want to self-modify, because those are the things that are critical towards like proving safety properties, right? And so we want to have like an understanding of why the architecture is trustworthy in some way, and a guarantee that the architecture doesn't just escape itself.
Mm. So yeah, I should let Roman ask first. But
Okay, maybe a stupid question. So why is it like tiling? As I understand you now, the agent will just, if we successfully prove this fact that it will not choose to self-modify, it will like never self-modify, and like there is nothing to prove about the next version of the agent because there is no version of the next version of the agent, right? Or
Well, I mean, it keeps, like, across time, it's reflected, right? Like I don't claim that tiling is a great name. Maybe we five should decide together that tiling is the wrong name and we want to call the field something else. But like, yeah, historically, the reason why it's been called tiling is because you have this picture of an agent like lined up, like it's tiling across time the way the triangles tile the plane.
Like I when we had like 101s, I shared like the different story about the tiling theorem. So yeah, about like how one agent proof about like the next version of itself, something like that. But yeah, I guess
Well, I mean, like an unmodified version is still a next version of itself.
Yes. I understand.
But sorry, so I guess we don't want, or I guess we don't want an unmodified version, just an unmodified version in some aspects, or
Yeah, right. Like it can have new observations. It can have new, like, in the version that, I mean, yeah, in the proposal that I'm putting forward, it even has new updated beliefs. It's just that it doesn't completely trust them, right? Like it's updateless with respect to these updated beliefs, but these updated beliefs are the notion of observation. But not all of you might understand what I mean there yet. I've discussed this with some of you. And so it is like, it does have things that are changing over time. It's just that, like I said, this thing I could call the architecture should remain unmodified.
Two questions about the setup here.
Yeah.
First off, what kinds of facts is our agent logically uncertain about?
I
Or
mean,
is that even a question to ask here?
so I guess I would say all of them.
About observations, about payoffs, about setups.
I mean, like, I think
So
there is a practical distinction between logical uncertainty and empirical uncertainty. To the point, like to the extent that I can say, well, uncertainty about mathematics, I'm going to call that logical uncertainty, and uncertainty about what observation I'm going to see, I'm going to call that empirical uncertainty. But it's not that I think these are two different, like fundamentally different types of uncertainty that need different mathematical theories. It's more that the historical development of probability theory has developed tools that are more appropriate to empirical uncertainty only. And this logical uncertainty or computational uncertainty is something that's been underdeveloped until recently. And so this new theory of uncertainty is applicable to empirical uncertainty also. And the picture here is indeed to use that theory of uncertainty for everything.
Okay, so an important subpart of this would be finding some way to talk about logical uncertainty that extends naturally back to empirical uncertainty.
I mean, I think that logical induction already solves that part of the problem.
Okay.
Like logical induction is a very natural generalization of the classic Bayesian picture,
Sure.
where instead of having hypotheses that already can specify ahead of time all of their reactions to any observation that might take place, and which have no like deliberation over time, they don't change their opinions over time. Instead, we have hypotheses that can now change their opinions over time by doing more computation. And so they can react to things in ways that they themselves could not anticipate earlier on by thinking about them. And then logical induction gives a framework in which we can say how the probability flows between such hypotheses without leading to like degenerate results.
All right. The other thing I was going to ask about was, we have this tiling theorem, and we have this desire for a tiling theorem, and we're thinking a little bit about self-modification of policy too. is there any reason to believe that that we're not in fact just doomed here in a case where we have some omega that will reward our agent if it self-modifies if it self-modifies its policy to become amenable to self-modifying other aspects of itself, and we'll get a huge payoff if omega sees that our agent is like that, and we'll get no payoff otherwise.
Yeah, interesting question. Because it's like the type of fairness assumption I've considered so far is that the environment doesn't the environment doesn't care what you do internally. It only cares what your policy actually is.
Yes.
And you're postulating kind of a way around that of like, okay, omega doesn't care what you do internally, but it does reward you for modifying into something that's open to self-modification. I think that's kind of naturally ruled out by the way that I was doing things, because whether you are self-modifying or not is itself considered to be an internal fact. Like, it's considered to be part of your computation. And so omega is already not allowed to reward you for, well, let's see.
That's what I had. Like, try to jump in. If omega offers an agent so much utility that it overweights like the risks an agent considers when it considers self-modifying, well, so be it, right? Like, maybe it really like makes up all those risks, or am I like thinking in the wrong direction here? If it's happened, like.
So yeah, the way that I think about this is I don't claim that the theorem that we should prove about the actual AI that we want to build is that it will never self-modify. There are conditions under which self-modification can be rational, even with respect to these kind of architectural facts that we want some degree of guarantee that it doesn't self-modify those things. Because there might be a situation where like powerful aliens are going to reward us for that AI modifying or something like that, right? Like, there are situations where the reward that's offered is great enough. And so in proving these theorems, what we're trying to do is more of a sanity check of like, under these assumptions, which seem like good simplifying assumptions that like our perspective is, under those assumptions, indeed, the system should not self-modify. Then does the system carry out the reasoning that we would want it to and choose not to self-modify? And then it's like, if we couldn't get that, then it's probably the case that the system is unstable in the real world. Whereas if we can get that, then it's plausible that the system reasons the way that we would want in the real world. And then we can also consider other sanity checks, like, okay, so how does this system think when we do break these assumptions that we've made? Does the system seem to think in sensible ways about that, or have we kind of somehow baked in these assumptions in the wrong way, such that if they are broken, the system no longer can think sanely? So to summarize, first, we're ruling out cases like that. We're saying we're not going to consider cases where omega is rewarding us directly for self-modification. And then, like, later on, we should also, as a sanity check, see whether we've broken something about those cases, or they still seem like the decision theory reasons about them in a sane manner. And then with respect to Paul's idea of an omega that doesn't directly reward us for self-modifying, but somehow rewards us for becoming more open to it, I think that's worth considering more. So yeah, I've kind of laid out this plan, like first first everybody should get clear on these simple tiling theorems that I've laid out in like the draft paper and the presentation. Then the first objective and the main objective for the 3 months that we'll be together is this tiling theorem for logically uncertain updateless decision theory. I think if we can get that, then we've made a major accomplishment. And then there are these stretch goals that I've listed branching off on the end here, which feel like natural progression to me of like, so I think, like I've talked about this with some of you guys already, but it's kind of like the main aim here is to vindicate updateless decision theory, to show that updateless decision theory can indeed work with logical uncertainty. But then, in fact, I myself believe that updateless decision theory has some limitations. And in particular, in this realm of value uncertainty, I have an argument which I'll present to you all at some point, and I've already discussed with some of you, that updateless decision theory is insufficient. And so then, like, a natural next step is to apply the understanding that we got from tiling theorems for logically uncertain UDT to this counter-argument to updateless decision theory that I have and the concerns that I have, and try moving on, like moving beyond updateless decision theory and coming up with a generalized decision theory which has been called open-minded updatelessness, which allows for some kind of updating while trying to preserve a lot of the spirit of updateless decision theory.
Could you say more about that? Because that sounds like contradiction in terms. Are you saying that maybe no matter how many updates our open-minded UDT agent makes, that it'll still wind up bounded within some range somehow?
The intuitive picture that I could justify in more words is UDT is correct and tiles so long as you are sufficiently clear on your own values. And I'm using values in a way that includes your utility function and your prior. And so as long as UDT is kind of sufficiently aware of its own preferences in this way, then it will tile, and it is kind of the correct way to tile in some sense. However, if we have significant value uncertainty, which humans as a matter of practicality do indeed have, then, or so it seems to me, updateless decision theory is not the right way to go. And in particular, it seems like you should be updateful about some things, and in particular, you should be updateful about your values. And as I stated a minute earlier, the values kind of have these two components of your probabilities and your utility function. So to illustrate what I mean about open-minded updatelessness with respect to probabilities, the claim is that when you apply updateless decision theory in practice to your life, you use an understanding of the situation which is updateless about the various contingent facts of the situation, but which uses your best understanding of the sort of situation that you're in to supply the actual probabilities of those contingent facts. So, for example, a coin flip being 50-50, because you have a general background understanding that coin flips tend to be very close to fair. And so the picture is that like updateless decision theory, or sorry, like learning systems in general, as a matter of practicality, have to be given a broad prior because we don't yet know which specific hypotheses are good, right? And so because we have to do this broad prior, there are some really dumb hypotheses in there that we, as the designer of the learning system, don't like reflectively endorse putting in there. We're just putting them in there because we need to put in a broad prior. And if we just ran updateless decision theory on those learning systems with those broad priors, then the results would be really stupid. And
We'd wind up, sorry, I was going to say we'd wind up with some variety of computationally simple prior that doesn't actually accord very well with the real world. We wind up with like counterfactual trading with the specter of very simple universes.
Exactly. Because we're talking about logical uncertainty, we're talking about counterfactual trading with logically incoherent parallel universes even.
Yes.
And
like the universe where actually this bit of pi is 1 instead of 0, except that's not a thing.
Yeah. And so we as humans might come to reflectively endorse some types of behavior in that realm. It's unclear, like the philosophy isn't finished yet, but it seems that like the vast majority of behavior of that sort we do not endorse. And we want to build AI systems that update out of that type of stupidity. And similarly, we ourselves want to update out of that type of stupidity. Like we endorse ourselves using a sort of decision theory that is updateful in that way. So that's the argument.
Like, what was the whole thing about, like the counterfactual, like another universes where like the facts are in a different way? Like, what was that about? Is this some like well-known post or something like that? Like, or is it only me who didn't understand what was talked about?
I do have a post that discusses this, which is the open-minded. Yeah, I'll just bring it up.
Admittedly, that was pretty weird. If you want, I can try and explain it a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I think that post was pretty weird.
I mean, not just that, also the thing that I tried to say about that.
Other people, like, did you like catch like this counterfactual mugging, like with like the another universes. Like I do not know about the subject at all. It seems like.
Okay. There is kind of a whole literature on this subject. So yeah, maybe I'll bring up some of those things.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get us bogged down immediately on this first slide of the research plan.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, like I said, I want lots of discussion. I only have a couple more slides on the research plan, so we're not making terrible time. But perhaps it is, like, given that these things are stretch goals, maybe we should not spend too much time on that. But yeah, there's this whole subject matter of like,
If you want to, yeah, if you want, I can try and provide a very simple example of this. You might do something like, let's say we have this.
here's
Oh, yes, go ahead.
a post that is about like this subfield. Like, so multiversal cooperation is, I understand it's now called ECL, which stands for Evidential Cooperation in Large Worlds. Large worlds meaning like multiverse. So there is like an effective altruist discourse on this question of like how we should coordinate across the multiverse and like do like acausal bargaining with other plausible worlds than our own. And yeah, there's stuff that you can read on that.
The best way that I could describe this is it's something of an extension of expected value or even Kelly betting, where for Kelly betting, it's, oh, I could be in this universe when this, when this coin flip ends or the horse race ends, or I could be in this other universe. And in either case, I would really rather not go bankrupt. So I'm going to bet this specific fraction of my money on this specific outcome. Or maybe I randomize a bit and I bet some other smaller fraction of money on one of the other outcomes. And in any case, whichever universe I end up in, my expected value of wealth across all of those will be maximized. But then there's a worry if we, then there's a worry for like the open-minded UDT agent where, okay, but maybe some of these universes aren't just empirically impossible after the fact, they're just logically impossible the whole time. Because rather than we're betting on a horse race or on a roulette wheel or whatever, we're instead betting on what the billionth digit of pi is. And exactly one of those universes actually exists. So it's kind of incoherent to say, oh, good, I'll pick one of these at random and bet some amount of utility on that. And then no matter which it is, because there is no matter which it is.
Sorry, you lost me.
Yeah, it's kind of like hard to understand it. It's like on the fly, like without like all the text and formulas.
Yeah, maybe let's move on. Yeah, this is an interesting topic, but like I said, it's like, to me, it's a stretch goal. Like, I want to focus on this kind of vindicating UDT, and then to me, the next thing after that is questioning UDT, which brings up all these topics. And then, as I've listed, there's more stretch goals kind of after that as well that are, I mean, this ordering is not strict. People can explore all of this stuff in any order they want to, but my suggestion is we focus on this. So let's talk in more detail about how I see this part playing out. So in terms of the draft paper, there's understanding the simple tiling results that I've sketched out. And then there's some problems, like I I need to revise the draft paper. There's some outright mistakes in there, and there's also things that I haven't fleshed out fully. Like I said in the draft paper, it's a mathematical sketch at this stage. It needs to be improved. And then in the last portion of the draft paper, I start to get into stuff related to combining it with true logical uncertainty. And so the sketch of the research plan for that to me is, first let's get solid on this thing, Bayesian logical induction, which was an invention of Sam Eisenstadt. And so the idea here is kind of the first problem that you run into when you're trying to apply updateless decision theory trying to combine updateless decision theory and logical induction, is that there's no clear observation notion anymore. Like, updateless decision theory is quite dependent on this notion of a policy, that you're like optimizing your policy by looking at you have a notion of observation and then a notion of action, and a policy is a function from observations to actions, right? And so in logical induction, because you're just allowed to change your beliefs however, then there's no such convenient notion of observation, at least on the surface. And so what Sam did with Bayesian logical induction is he took the entire epistemic state as the notion of observation. And so he formulated you take a logical inductor, which is a sequence of market states over time. Market states meaning prices on propositions, which are, of course, probability-like. So you have these prices on propositions over time, and then you translate that to a completely Bayesian framework where the prices over time evolve in exactly the same way, but the market states from the raw logical inductor are the observation. And so you observe the second market state, you update to the second set of prices yourself. You observe the third market state, you update to the third set of prices yourself. And so it's a picture basically of a Bayesian who completely trusts the logical inductor. And so by doing this, we're able to convert logical induction to a completely Bayesian system. And that gets us past this first hurdle with how we are combining updateless decision theory and logical induction. Because now we have a notion of observation that can be used to develop a notion of policy. And so my first step recommendation in this research plan, third step, first step after you kind of understand the draft paper well, is to get a clear picture of Bayesian logical induction. There is not currently a canonical write-up of this. And so, partly that will be my job to communicate it, but also one of our goals as a team should be to develop a canonical write-up of it that satisfies us, not only say what properties that we think it should satisfy, but prove that such an object exists that satisfies those properties.
And just to check, do you have a list of properties that you already know that a Bayesian logical inductor should satisfy, or is this still unfixed? Or
Yeah, I've got a list of properties.
okay, and you've like just for basic sanity checks, you've already checked that like nothing immediately rules out being able to have all of them at once.
Yeah, it seems to me that the existence proof should work, but I haven't written it out in full. Like
Okay.
Sam sketched it to me 5 years ago, and yeah, like it maybe at some point we'll get Sam in if we continue to have difficulty following how this should work. But
Sure. Can you? Is the list already in the Notion? Like that list and that sketch proof, are those already in the Notion, or did I miss it?
I am not certain. It might or might not be in Martin Soto's notes. I will get better notes to you if they are not there already.
Okay.
Yeah, I was taking a look at one of Martin's papers this morning, and I'm actually like, anyway, yeah. So then, so yeah, that's step 3. That's the most important step for you guys to worry about next after like understanding the draft paper. Then step 4, which there's significant information on, or maybe I'll just summarize the rest of the steps. Like the rest of the steps have, generally speaking, this nature of figuring out more rationality constraints, which seem like they are important to carrying out the updateless decision theory reasoning that we want to be able to carry out. And then figuring out if those rationality, like, coming up with hypotheses like, oh, this principle seems like it could be important based on my informal understanding, and then formalizing those and then combining them all together. And I already have like a list, like me and Martin created a list of these properties that seem like they're important. And one of them is this love coherence or real value coherence thing, but there's a number of other ones in the Martin Soto notes. And my problem with the state of things is like, Martin and I did not get to the point where we could put all those properties together nicely into, okay, here's a nice theorem. And so it's kind of just a big list at this point. And also, like, I think a lot of these properties imply each other. And so it's not quite clear, like, which properties serve as like the foundation versus which are like things that we can prove with the foundation. And that needs to be clarified more. So yeah, like the goal is to figure out, well, okay, what do we actually need in order to prove a nice tiling result and formalize all of those properties and show that they're consistent together so that we have a construction and then a tiling theorem for that construction. And I'll get, again, more notes. Like there's lots of stuff in the Martin Soto notes, but I'll try to clarify my list of properties over time and present them in like the Thursday meetings. And that'll be a major part of the work.
I have nothing to add to that past wanting to get a better definition of large versus small beliefs.
Yeah, okay. So large versus small beliefs is like, you have a logical inductor, you have these polytime traders.
Yeah.
And you only, at any point in time, you only have a finite collection of polytime traders. You're adding more over time. And so these traders can only touch so many beliefs in the amount of time they have to think at a given slice, like at a given time step.
Okay.
And those are the small beliefs, the ones that I have been touched by the market. And then large beliefs are just the ones that are too big to have been touched by the market. And so the construction of Bayesian logical induction works based off of the fact that you like, if you mess with the large beliefs to try to get any property that you want over the whole thing, like it doesn't screw with any of the logical induction properties, because logical induction gets you nice properties only through these small beliefs, and the large beliefs aren't really important to that. And so Bayesian logical induction can be seen as a coherence principle beyond the coherence principles that are given to you by logical induction, which makes logical induction into something that's completely Bayesian by fiddling with these large beliefs. But my claim on this like line of research is that Bayesian logical induction is not the end of the story. There is some broader picture that we need to understand about coherence between small and large beliefs, which will get us the updateless decision theory that we want. And so it could be interesting here to kind of take a step back philosophically and say, well, what are we doing? Why is the logical induction notion of coherence really inadequate in some sense here? Why are we inventing these broader coherence principles? And what does it really mean to have coherence principles relating small beliefs to large beliefs? My personal motivating philosophical example for this is thermodynamics. So you can think of the macro states in thermodynamics as the things that we are capable of having small beliefs about. I know that my hand is raised in the air. I know that my, like, things about my finger positions. These are macro states. But then micro states, there are far too many of them for me to have specific opinions about them. But nonetheless, when I do thermodynamics, I do involve them in the math, and I talk about the probabilities of these microstates.
Right.
And so,
probability of your hand having ridiculously high or ridiculously low temperature is, or of pulling some particle out of your hand and measuring its energy and getting a really, really high or really, really low number is exponentially unlikely, literally.
right. And I can make statements about that, but like the philosophical question is kind of like, well, how am I doing this? How am I reasoning about very, very large propositions like the conjunction of the locations of all the atoms? How can I say that I have probability distributions over this? How do those probability distributions that are too large to fit in my brain in the way the probability of macrostates fits in my brain relating to the probability of macrostates? How does it all cohere together? These are the sorts of questions that we're asking from a philosophical perspective. It's just like we might lose sight of that if we're like very, very focused on this decision theoretic goal that we have. Roman?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you mean by fiddling with beliefs? Like, what do you mean with it?
By fiddling, I mean like Bayesian logical induction keeps the probabilities associated with the small beliefs exactly the same as regular logical induction. But the large beliefs, it's modifying them in order to obey certain coherence principles. So by fiddling, I just mean like regular logical induction might just put 0.5 on all of these large beliefs. Instead, we're editing it. We're trying to make it more reasonable. We're saying, well, 0.5 is a really bad prior for these big things, and that actually matters. And we want a better prior for these big things.
What you mentioned thermodynamics, like it is actually like the thermodynamics is like kind of about how we think about like logic, about it is in some sense about logical uncertainty. Like it is about how we don't understand the exact state, but still nonetheless know some properties. Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, thermodynamics is deeply about logical uncertainty in a way. Okay, I'm gonna maybe.
Can I make a short comment
Yeah, sure.
on this? Yeah, I feel that this analogy is incomplete in the sense that in physics there is a natural hierarchy of scales. Like big things don't affect small things. So so you could distinguish between macro states and micro states, and the process of going from thermodynamics to like to understanding macro states becomes one of refinement. But for general logical uncertainty, it's not clear to me that there is such a direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess making a kind of summary response, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to defend that analogy too strongly. Like, it's a motivating example for me, but the relevance is not super clear. I just think it's an interesting philosophical example. But yeah, maybe I'll try to move on. So I wanted to take a little time to talk about the role of all these background readings that I've given to you, and any background readings that I could in the future. I think an easy failure mode to fall into, because there's so much background material, you could like take your time to understand the logical induction paper well, for example, which is a very big paper. You could take your time to understand all of the notes from Martin Soto, which is a lot of notes, and many other things that I've already linked to or could link to in the future. But I think it would be unfortunate, although still valuable, but unfortunate if you spend the entire time that we have here reviewing information. We want to try to prove new results. And the reference material should be facilitating that rather than hampering that. And so beyond like the first couple of weeks or something like that, I think, and to some extent, even in the first couple of weeks, I want to encourage you to just jump in and try to do things as soon as you are able to. Start, trying to scribble theorems on paper and prove them, right? Like, and then treat the background reading as something that you backchain to when you're unable to make progress, because it will help you make progress, as opposed to forward chaining, meaning like trying to understand all the material that's been laid out and then do things. So like keep close to the goal of proving new useful theorems for AI safety, and then backchain from there. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it still leaves me floating on where it is we should start, right? Like what specific theorem, say, are we building off of, if there is one, or what assumptions do we know we can take for absolutely granted? Are there any?
To me, the draft paper is the theorems that we're trying to build off of. Like the very simple updateless decision theory tiling theorems that I've proven there are 3 of them. And to me, those are the template. And what we want to do is maybe improve those a little bit before we move on, but then like we want to try to take that template and apply it to this richer setting with logical induction involved, because I think it might essentially be that simple. Like, I think those theorems might be about the right shape for then what we want to do. We just need a lot more mathematical machinery to kind of justify certain moves.
Okay.
And then with respect to the like what to read, again, like the draft paper, and then Bayesian logical induction, which currently the best thing to do is to dive into Martin Soto's notes, but hopefully I'll come up with a better something to provide you guys with as time goes on. And hopefully we'll together work on like a very good write-up of that. And then yeah, we'll just have to continue as the project continues, we'll have to continue like improving the state of the notes in that way and centering in on which ones are actually critical.
Yeah, sorry, I want to ask about like there was I think there was a post by Sam that you referred to earlier, but wasn't I didn't see it appearing in the readings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, is that for a reason?
I will add it. Yeah, I think that should be in the readings. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. So yeah, so we've already spent one of our hours. But yeah, I guess open discussion on the research plan, and I have some prompt questions here.
Regarding Infobase, that had struck me as probably something we might want to think about.
Yeah, I think that a very reasonable alternative research plan to everything I've sketched here would be like, no, we should actually just try to do tiling in Infobase. And I'm open to anybody who wants to pursue that.
I have a little bit of experience working with Bayesian probability or like Bayesian decision theory, I guess. But I'm still, because of the way that the foundations keep getting reworked and some of the clarity around results and what those results mean and how to plug them into anything else, I'm a little uncertain on how well we could make that work this quickly.
Yeah, I've read a lot of the material, but I can't say that it has stuck to the point where I've like ended up using it in my research, which is maybe, you know, me just not being like it, you know, they use the most advanced mathematics to develop their work, and it is a bit intimidating. Of course, from the perspective of some of you, maybe logical induction is equally intimidating. I just happen to be very familiar with it. One thing I would say is I think that deliberation is very important to human values, in the sense that to me capturing human values doesn't mean capturing what is the human probability distribution, what is the human utility function. It also involves this kind of third aspect of like how those things change over time. Like how do we philosophically reason when we have time to think and reach eventually like reflectively consistent beliefs that combine our loose heuristic intuitions into codified principles. Like, I don't think that this is a process which we should think of ourselves as kind of finishing by solving AI alignment. Instead, we should think of ourselves as transferring this process into machines in a trustworthy way, right? And it's not that InfraBase cannot ever capture that, but I do know that, like, when I've talked to Vanessa Kosoy, she's been skeptical of this picture that I offer, and is more on board with the picture that humans have some kind of static utility function, which we could maybe even just look at the brain and figure out. And that's just not like my picture of what the goal is with respect to AI alignment.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy that. I buy Vanessa's story there, I mean.
Yeah, in some sense, I think the philosophical, like Wei Dai's meta-philosophy approach of like, how do we formalize philosophy is a safer approach, at least. Like, it hedges the bet that Vanessa is wrong.
Yes.
And so
good.
So that's one reason, maybe the main reason why I prefer the logical induction setup as opposed to the infra-Bayesian setup.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Mostly I was just thinking about this idea of open-minded UDT. That sounds like it's trying to do something fairly similar, of never totally ruling something out, for instance. Never, some of what Vanessa's talked about as far as not having a dogmatic prior that the truth is computationally simple or even computable, although that's probably does have to be computable. And a couple of things that I've seen as far as goes equivalence between probabilities not summing up to one, not necessarily summing up to one on the one hand, and specific computational processes or what information you have at a given time mattering. Those seem to be equivalent in a way I can explain later if that's of interest. I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess maybe we'll talk more in like one-on-ones. I just want to encourage people to feel free to pursue alternative plans like this. Like, I might be less value in advising those alternate research plans, but I probably will still be of some value. And to briefly summarize the cooperation coordination thing, I think this might go well with the infra-Bayesian thing, particularly because, as I understand it, Hannah has worked on some cooperation stuff in InfraBase. And but I think there are several different ideas which I could outline in more detail later. But basically, one of the big problems in the tiling theorems in the draft paper is the self-coordination problem, that because we need to use UDT 1.0 to make non-trivial tiling theorems, but UDT 1.0 does not coordinate with itself as effectively as UDT 1.1 does, this creates opportunities for real failures of tiling, like cases where we would actually legitimately say, no, this shouldn't tile. Like, it should want to self-modify just to make its self-coordination better. And so if other tools such as infra-Bayesianism or like three other things that I could summarize at some point, if we could plug those in, then maybe we can get around that bottleneck for these tiling theorems and come up with better tiling theorems than we otherwise would. So I think that's actually like an important direction to consider. maybe even before moving on to the full logical uncertainty. Maybe we need to address coordination first in some sense. At least, yeah, I think there's kind of an argument to be made there. So yeah, with that, I guess I should ask this final question, like, do people know what their next steps are right now?
I think I do.
Question. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Roman, what?
Yeah, I was kind of, like in one of your posts, you said something about using current AIs in accelerating, like AI safety progress. Like, are you talking about like using like current model? Like current models are becoming like really good at math, like amazingly good. Like nobody expected them to be that good, I guess. And like, can they help us? Like, or those benchmarks like do not really show anything about like novel mathematical results.
My experience has been that AI is terrible at helping me do this particular kind of research. I have tried over and over trying to prompt it well and give it good background material, and it just hallucinates incorrect proofs of things that I ask it for. And even worse, the proofs are often cleverly hidden. Like the flaws in the proofs are often cleverly hidden, such that I have to actually like
debug the proof. Yeah,
like if I
debugging the proof is longer.
Like if I just look at it at a glance, then it's like everything is kind of in the correct genre. It's invoking the right sorts of theorems. The steps look kind of plausible, but then it's like globally it doesn't hang together, you know, like, so maybe it will be there soon, but my opinion, it's not there yet. I have mainly used Claude, so I'm mainly talking about Claude. Maybe like I've used O1 a little bit, and I'm not yet convinced that it's dramatically better. I do think it's like somewhat better, probably just on priors. Like lots of other people have said it's better at lots of things, so I don't know. But and then maybe O3 is there. I haven't interacted with O3 at all. So I think it's something to be open to and something to continue experimenting with as these tools get better. But as far as I've seen, it's not something I can just like recommend using.
Like in general, like I do prefer to not use like LLMs, or I use them only like to correct my grammar in writing, and like because I just feel dumber. Like I just feel like every time I use LLM in like any sort of task, I feel like it takes a part of my soul. So, I don't know.
Yeah, one person that I know described it like this. He said, these things are a moral abomination. Taking any actions which spin up their wheels of cognition is morally abhorrent. And while I don't know, I do use them sometimes myself, I appreciated the clarity of spirit in this way of looking at it. I'm like, yeah, there's something nice about just, yep, they're an abomination. Stay as far away from them as possible. I mean, I'm coming, of course, from an AI safety perspective where I kind of wish that we didn't go down this timeline that we've gone down. And so that's part of my bias there. But at the same time, I'm like, if there's an opportunity to like accelerate AI safety research with them, it feels instrumentally important, whether or not you view them as an abomination, morally speaking.
Yeah.
Roman and I will just meet on this call.
Sounds good to me. Thank you again. I'll see you all soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Goodbye. So yeah, what are the format for this one-on-ones? Is this just like keeping you up to date with what I've been up to, right?
I mean, yeah, basically, like I'm here to guide you, right? Like I'm interested in getting an update, and then like planning out like your next week of research, and also just like the ideal case for me is just having a real research discussion, right? Like any questions that are on your mind or questions that are on my mind, and just discussing.
So yeah, like
So Norman is
Yeah.
preparing notes before each one of like what's currently on his mind, and then sending me those notes. That seems useful.
yeah, that seems pretty useful. Yeah, I haven't thought about it. That is really useful. Yeah, I haven't prepared any notes. I just have like this is not like questions about like this research program in particular. I just like wanna talk about like the alignment in general.
Okay.
Like um have were you on the opening event?
I came for 20 minutes, and then I found the whole being sent to chat with random people too overwhelming, and I left.
Oh, okay. So yeah, like there was one guy in the chat who said something along the lines of, by working on alignment, you are practically allowing murder because you are like putting a mask on a shoggoth. Like you should stop because like you should stop. You because like you stand out for to protect your close ones, something like that. And like this really like had an impact on me, not a small one. Like
Hmm.
I really want to j- I don't know. Like what do you view on this? Like we are of any team on the like safety camp. I guess we are one of the least mask shoggoth type, right? We are like so probably like I shouldn't really take that close to my heart. So.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding the view yet. So like, is the idea that we should be working on AI pause instead?
Yes. AI not pausing, even stopping fully,
Yeah.
because there is no way to ensure that ASI is safe. Like there is no way. Anything that you think is reassuring is just like you're just imagining that this is reassurance. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm like, yeah, when Miri pivoted, like starting 2023, and then like getting rid of the Agent Foundations team in 2024. They're working on pause type stuff. I don't think they think absolute halt is feasible, but pause. And like I was told that they're not getting rid of me because they don't think I should be doing what I'm doing. They're just trying to focus. And a pause is only useful if in the meantime the research happens.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
And so yeah, from that perspective, I'm like, if I knew of a way, like if I thought that I could be useful towards pause, then
Marginally more useful than you are in research.
right. Like I do think that it would be good if society became convinced that building AI that is more intelligent than humans is a dumb idea, at least for now, like until we have the plan. But my feeling is that that's not going to happen, and that we should do the most useful research that we can, whatever that is, even if that does happen. And so kind of, yeah, the remaining concern is this mask on Shoggoth thing. Like,
Yeah, but like we are not like putting mask on Shoggoth. Like we are not working on with like we are not even working with current LLMs or anything like
well,
that.
when is safety? So that there's the mask on Shoggoth thing, but there's the broader thing of safety washing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the concern that safety research will reassure people.
Too much. Yeah.
And to me, this is a real concern, but I feel that the frontier AI models, I don't know. This is a big question to me of like I feel like just if we could push the frontier models to be less stupid in terms of how they could go about safety than they currently are, then that's a good thing. But you could make a counter argument that's like, no, actually, like this is like the Eliezer counter argument that incremental improvements in safety are not going to get us there. We need to do the whole thing at once. Like, we need to properly solve the problem. And yeah, this project is mostly aimed at that kind of properly solve the problem thing. But this is a big question to me of like, how useful are incremental pushes towards safety? How useful is it to put a mask on a Shoggoth? How useful is it to do something that's less dumb than the thing that people are currently doing?
Was there any like on your count? So, sorry. Yeah.
Like, to me, putting a mask on a Shoggoth is better than not putting a mask on a Shoggoth. This is a radical statement. I think most people in AI safety will not agree with this statement. And I think
I see where you are going. Like the mask somewhat protects you. Like at least it buys you something. Like in some worlds where alignment is easier than like Miri think it is,
yeah,
it probably might help you. So yeah, but I don't know what world we are living in. I have a lot of uncertainty. I have a lot of uncertainty. Like I don't know. Like those tweets of Sam Altman, like those just like and like the general consensus is that he's bullshitting, is that he's like just advertising, and I'm like, how can you be so sure about that? Like it's just it's so weird to me. The world's response to it, like I would hope that we would live in a more sane world where everybody would like say something like, "What do you mean? Like, please explain what do you mean by that?" And like not just say, one more advertisement tweet." So yeah, and those tweets of him, those kind of shorten my timelines a lot more than any of the benchmarks, I guess.
Oh,
So,
okay. See, I'm like I talked to Dal Kokatayo, who has had like 2-year timelines for like 2 years.
And here we are, still alive.
And I mean, so Daniel Kokotai has a very specific definition of timelines. Like, it's time to point of no return, and so it's not even like
We might already be
we
past
might
the-
already be at the point of no return.
Ah,
And I feel like in terms of the specific predictions that he made 2 years ago about like what systems we would have today, he was more right than me. Although like he wasn't exactly right, but like yeah, like I have contacts like Sam Eisenstadt has had pretty long timelines for a while, and Svi Vincent-Tilson, like both of them have been like, people are over updating on the fast progress of current systems, and it's still going to take decades, and LLMs are not anywhere near human level intelligence in the way that matters. And I'm just like, LLMs are human level. Have you tried talking to humans? like, like, yes, you can point out all these dumb things that LLMs do, but also humans.
humans also do these dumb things, yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I have like
Even Sam Eisenstadt is adjusting downwards recently, like with the result.
who adjusting?
Sam Eisenstadt, so he was another member of the Agent Foundation's team at MIRI, and he's been in my circle, he's been the most ardent defender of long timelines and also the clearest argued. Like, I mean, so yeah, I felt like for a while I've been bouncing back and forth between Sam and Daniel Kokotayo, and I think Daniel Kokotayo was more correct.
Shifting topics a bit. Like so yeah. Can I like? No. I've heard what you and Paul talked about today, and like I completely missing out. I feel like I completely like don't understand. No, not like completely, but like I'm missing important parts of understanding, and I need to keep up. And I try to keep up like after I got accepted in the like for Mentis team. I tried to keep up. I weren't able to, not because I didn't have time, but because I don't know. I just was feeling upset. Since the 03 release. So yeah. I don't know. I'm feeling better now, a lot better, and like you are. I mean, like the fact that I need to like meet with the team and like do something, the actual work, will kind of make me feel better, just because I'm focusing on the work and not like thinking about those scary thoughts. So yeah, that would definitely make me feel better.
Yeah, I've been quite depressed at times. I think it was 2022. I was depressed basically the whole year, and I got a lot of conceptual work done in the sense like if I thought about it, I think I could point to ideas that I had, but in terms of sitting down to do work, it's like almost a whole year where I just felt kind of unable to do that. So yeah, I definitely sympathize.
So yeah,
I think the best way is just to, have lots of discussions, like in our one-on-one meetings. Like, I'm happy to just, unpack lots of topics to the best of my ability. And
Yeah.
of course, like background readings.
I will not be able to like do a background reading this week. I will like it just so happens that this week is a busy one.
Mm.
It is my fault, but like nonetheless. I will be better at scheduling and like organizing my time and getting prepared during the like whole duration. Also, I had a question. Like, you like Paul asked about like what are like the scenarios after the project, what we're gonna do,
Yeah.
and you answer like one of the answers was something like in the one of the best case scenarios, like you create an organization around like this
Yeah.
results, and you're talking about like or taking your students. Like, are you talking about like you have like one group, some group of students, or are you talking about us? Or
Yeah, I'm talking
or-
about you guys.
Oh, okay.
I will probably take on one or two more students later in the year. And so I was also thinking of those potential students, but I don't know who those are yet. My hope is to build a research community around these topics. And of course, it might not be the case that all of you guys continue researching these topics after this, but that's my hope to some extent.
I kind of like. Sorry.
And I've been seeking funding like after Miri, and like I haven't yet found an organization that I'm happy to join. And so one of the possibilities that I've been like working on over the course of the year has been like, oh, should I create a new organization with some group of other people? And so that's like a very salient possibility to me. And I think it can happen if we have like a sufficiently good grant proposal.
I like again shifting topics. Thank you. That's sufficient. It's a sufficient answer. I'm like I talked about this in the like interview already. I'm thinking about like grounding those concepts. Like I'm like it seems like you expressed hope that maybe some of the future models already express the architectural properties that like, just so happens to map on our theorems really good. Am I understanding you correctly? Like something like that?
Maybe not quite. I mean, I think we should bring our theorems towards actuality.
Yeah, like yes, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, so I kind of like. Okay, there is this paradigm of pre-training, fine-tuning, and then reinforcement learning on chain of thoughts, right? This is like the current state of the art. Yeah, like I don't know, how like this is so like. I do not like it is so far in my head, like in the embedding space of like the tiling theorems and this architecture and the training process. These are like two completely different things. Like
Yeah.
I don't. It might be just in my head, and like my head is not a perfect one, and like lots of biases, and I do not see not a clear path, not even like a foggy path. I do not see it. Like
it is closer in my head. So
yeah.
the way I see it is so right now we're trying to combine logical induction with updateless decision theory. There's another combination of logical induction which is with LLMs. So like how would you take the ideas from logical induction and the ideas from LLMs and fit them together well? And I think this is like a tractable research area. Like I don't know the answers, but basically you're trying to create a sort of like fully automated prediction market with artificial prediction market participants who are individually implementing different principles of cognition that you, some of which you like strongly endorse, others of which are more there for exploratory purposes, so that you have that broad prior. And so this looks like to not really do great service to it, but it looks sort of like factored cognition. It looks sort of like AI safety via debate, but trying to do those kinds of things in a way that's more close to the mathematics of logical induction, so that we can get guarantees that somewhat correspond to the mathematics of logical induction. And then if we also have this piece of like, now we have tiling theorems that work with logical induction, then that strengthens further those guarantees that we might be able to get out of such a system. And
Is it something you would want one of us to work on, like experiment with? This is one of the things that seems to like might be like runnable. Like you can write a code that performs that. Would you like want for one of us to spend time on that?
so, I mean, it's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about that. The way that I'm thinking about things, it is a it's kind of outside of the scope because we are trying to do tiling theorems here. But on the other hand, it might be one of the most important things to work on today. And so, and it fits with the agenda in a broad sense. So yeah, I would be open to that as a possibility.
Okay.
But I feel like
Seems
there,
nice.
even with that track, there's a lot of theoretical work to do before you can even run an experiment, because how do you bridge that gap between logical induction and LLMs? I think there's like an obvious way to do it, which is just
Put LLM as a
yeah,
trader.
you can have a bunch of traders. Some of them are
And like
some of them could be other things, but you just
based on the like math results, like I'm somewhat downwards updating on those math results after your like talk about like how they are really terrible and counterproductive in your work. But like seeing that result seems like they have a good prior on like what mathematical statements might be true and might be not. Seems like they're one of the good traders. I don't know.
yeah, right. Like I have the feeling that it could be possible to use LLMs of today composed in ways that are inspired by logical induction, and they could be much smarter. Because I think LLMs are smart enough to know the basic reasoning steps, although maybe the way that they're trained, they're we could say too flexible with respect to the reasoning steps. They like create these bullshit proofs, but it doesn't seem like it should be beyond their ability to actually check proofs. I don't know. Yeah. And then
this seems like something we could explore, like the basic stuff. Like it is like the MVP, like minimal viable project, is really easy to do. Like just do the obvious stuff, like plug LLM in the logical induction, and see where it goes. But also like I haven't gotten this far into the logical induction paper. It was like there is a code which is a logical inductor, right? There is some code, but it seems like it like runs extremely slow. It like in the human time it isn't like even like on the really simple propositions. Like it isn't talking about anything complex.
There is some code on GitHub that is a logical inductor that was run at one of the early MIRI Summer Fellows programs, because they like to have like betting markets at the MIRI Summer Fellows programs, and it was like the year that logical induction was being announced. And so somebody made some code, I think Jessica Taylor made some code that ran a betting market, but it does involve a brute force search for fixed points. But it was able to run. It's not like completely impossible to run this. It's just like it scales up quickly as you add propositions. However, there might be ways around that. Like we can talk about ways that you might not have to run that expensive fixed point and still like you could get some of the theoretical guarantees of logical induction.
Is it written anywhere?
No, that would not be the sort of thing that the people who think about this would do. Right? Like this is all like stuff that evolved within the MIRI like high secrecy kind of intellectual landscape. But I mean, the secrecy is much lower now, and so like I could share some ideas that were had.
Okay.
And maybe it's the right time to start writing about those things publicly, because it would be better than what people are doing currently.
Okay.
So yeah, again, like Sam Eisenstadt has some ideas about how to run efficient logical induction without losing too many guarantees.
Okay. That's interesting. That would be interesting to hear. So yeah, just to wrap up, just I just want to say, like, I really like your presentation, your style, your pictures.
Thanks.
In general.
Appreciate it.
And I also watched your interview with Dr. Wacko. What was really interesting, and it also touched like the topic I was like thinking in that exact moment, like about, well, LLMs are kind of having human style approach to solutions, so maybe yeah, something we can get out of that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I was thinking of this like as a separate line of research of like LLM logical induction versus the tiling stuff, but like maybe it will come together.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I did not prepare some like deep technical questions. So yeah, maybe I will maybe prepare them next time, but they are going to be about informationism, right?
Okay.
I'm just asking, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, you are.
Infrabeijing. Yeah, so because I'm preparing a lecture for like
Right.
Moscow Safety Hub. That's why I'm busy.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you for this one-to-one. See you on Thursday.
See you. Yep. Take care.
Goodbye.